Hey guys, welcome back. So today we have a little bit of breaking news, and it's regarding another Supreme Court decision which was handed down. Now, this doesn't directly have any influence on firearms legislation or bills or anything like that yet, but it's still a big victory that's yet to be seen how this will affect the ATF and their constant basically making up new laws out of whole cloth that they've been doing the last few years with everything from bump stocks to braces to you name it. So the EPA it was fighting for the ability to make changes to existing law that would affect the carbon footprint of Americans and imposing restrictions on various agencies or various companies and things like that. And the Supreme Court took a look at this, and it's a matter of chevron deference. And this is something that the court has historically shied away from, because this is how Congress basically works, oversimplified version. They pass a law, and then they hand it to the regulatory agency to handle it, to administrate that law, right? But with that comes this big blanket of just opportunity where they can pretty much go, okay, based upon the law Congress passed, we interpret this sentence to really mean something completely different, and then go out, make a regulation change, impose that on the entire industry, and they've never once went before Congress to basically enforce what is the equivalent of a new law, because they were interpreting the existing law. And the reason chevron is something of a hot button is because the Supreme Court historically has been afraid of touching it, because they know if they pull on that thread and they say chevron is bad and every major decision must go to the Congress, that goes across all agencies. And they pull that thread, that unravels all these decades and decades of these agencies just willy-nilly making up rules and laws out of whole cloth, including the ATF. So I was listening to the legal pundits to come into the studio today to talk about this, and they said that this could have far-reaching implications, but there's a lot of what-ifs, right?
Always is, yeah.
There always are what-ifs, and the what-ifs include, okay, so how is this going to affect ATF? What is a major decision? You know, when does this kick in, this new application of chevron deference, this new limit that the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, has placed on chevron now? They've now put, guardrails on it. They've said you can't go this far, but how far is this far? And folks are reading the ruling. It's a fairly lengthy ruling, and we're hoping to hear something back. Now, it brings up a whole lot of questions, obviously, for us in the 2A world, right? Because ATF routinely says just contradictory things. How many times do they say bump stocks are legal? Like 4?
They have gone back and forth on so many different things between bump stocks and braces and
auto key
pistols
cards.
And shoulder it, can't shoulder it, cheek it, makes whatever interpretation. If your intent, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's just so many different ways that they read things,
right,
that most people don't even realize that nowadays that they're breaking a law probably just from breathing.
Right.
So it's pretty wild, and it is good to see that some of this stuff is being, reined in right now. Yes, this is not directly affecting the 2A, but it can be used, just like we had said earlier when the bump stock ban, when they were talking about it. And we always said it's not about the stocks.
Right.
It's not about, don't just look at it as well, it's just a bump stock, who cares? I don't use them. They're really dumb, blah, blah, blah. No. It's not about the stock. It's about what they're going to use with the wording that they were using and all that other stuff that would have problems down the line.
Right.
So,
well, in our bump stock case that's now before the Supreme Court, so we won the bump stock case in the 3-judge panel. Then the government requested a full court review of the Sixth Circuit Court. The full court ruled, we missed one vote, that no, they undid the panel's decision and said no, bump stocks are still illegal. And so now we've taken the case to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has accepted the brief. They are reading it. So now it's a matter of them deciding whether or not they're going to chime in and reverse the Sixth Circuit's decision. This can help us, because I know in our court case, while it doesn't hinge upon chevron, it certainly brings it up. Mm-hmm. And it talks about ATF's flip-flopping positions.
Yep.
And this is another case that if the Supreme Court is now zeroing in on Chevron and starting to pull these agencies back, saying, no, you need to get congressional approval before you pass a rule that carries the weight of law and can put American citizens in prison for 10 years, which is what they're proposing to do with braces.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, they're legal. Oh, by the way, sorry, everybody, those 40 million braces that are out there, they're now stocks, and you're going to go to prison if you didn't get this memo.
Right. You know how many people probably have that stuff and have no idea?
Because they went into a gun shop, bought a braced pistol, a legal firearm from a legal FFL dealer, took it home. They don't live online. They don't,
live in the two-way news community. Right.
Never makes a local newspaper, almost never makes the national news. The ATF makes this arbitrary ruling, which basically carries the weight of law, and something that was perfectly legal yesterday is now illegal, and you're a felon and you can go to prison for 10 years. And you don't even know it until you go to the local firing range and boom.
Some RO there wants to, has a chip on their shoulder.
Right. Wants to play, has a God complex and wants to be, you can't have that here. We don't need those. And boom, now you're, fighting for your life. And so that's why this decision can be so big. Now, I don't think this is going to immediately stop ATF. I think ATF's going to look at this, as most of these bureaucracies are, and they're going to look at this and see what their exposure is, right? And they're going to take a look at the midterms, because there's one thing I know for sure. The ATF does not like being questioned publicly. They don't like public hearings. They don't like being questioned about their policies. They would just rather stay in the shadows. So if they assess that there's going to be this red wave that might bring about congressional hearings at the midterms, ATF may pull back on their decision and instead of August, push out to December or past before they make a final decision on the bump stocks. I'm sorry, not the bump stocks, the braces, right? Because right now they're still legal. Where people are saying, well, August was the magic date. Now we're hearing maybe it's going to get moved back even further. Because again, I think ATF is going to start, if looking at this ruling, they're going to have to take a look at everything they've done and everything they're looking at doing and revisit that, because they can still do it. Right. They can still make some arbitrary rule up and say AR-15s are readily convertible, therefore they're all machine guns. They can still do that. But then it's up to us to challenge them in court, to slap their hand again and say, here's the legal precedent you violated. Stop it, ATF. And that, as we know, takes years.
Right. And that's
meanwhile, all your AR-15s are getting confiscated.
And this ruling right now would help with a lot of that.
I would hope so.
It has the ability potentially to help with this, because then that could be used to rein them in, to stop them in their tracks, if you will, for rule changes or whatever that takes place. So,
yeah, if they make a rule change that we don't like, immediately file a court case, and based upon legal precedent, hopefully you would get an injunction to stop the confiscation and destruction of people's private property until it gets litigated and they're told, yeah, you've gone past your boundaries here, ATF. And again, this could potentially affect all the alphabet agencies that are so horribly corrupt, not just the EPA and ATF, but think of any of them, FCC, FAA, just pick them out of the air. I mean, they would all be affected by this ruling, which is really, really powerful. So we've had a lot of really good news come out of the Supreme Court just in the last couple of weeks, right? We now have an absolute court-certified right to carry firearms outside of the home in self-defense in states that don't want to give you permits unless they have an actual real reason not to. They must give you a permit to carry. So that was a major decision that we got. And then this one with regards to the EPA is another great decision that could potentially help us in our ongoing fights, not only for the bump stocks, which is now, again, before the Supreme Court, but also with the pending brace rule and everything else the ATF's trying to do, dragging people into court over the auto key card. Come on, seriously? What jury would look at that and say, oh yeah, that's a machine gun, unless you find the dumbest jury in the world? Right?
It's all about jamming you up.
Yeah, it's all about harassing you, scaring you, and making you not want to exercise your Second Amendment rights. They just want to intimidate you, and they do that through these rule changes. And we're really close to it, right? We see these changes happening. We discuss them all the time. But a lot of folks just don't know.
No.
And they don't know that they're now breaking the law. They're otherwise would-be law-abiding citizens. They would be that person that would turn in their bump stock, turn in their AR-15, turn in whatever, but they don't even know.
Right.
So, they may have the best intentions, but ATF can still jam you up.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really excited about this. I'm really curious to see where it goes and how this affects the 2A community and our constant fights with the ATF in court. I really think, groups like Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition, who are two very active groups in suing the government over their actions, I hope this gives GOA and FBC and others all the ammunition they need to successfully roll back some of these recent ATF decisions and rulemaking stuff. Everything from ammunition, banning 7 and 4, all that stuff, or 7 and 6. I'm sorry, all that stuff they've done in the past, just arbitrarily done it.
Right. Well, you had M855. I want to say it was after the 7 and 6, they were going after M855, and the more people were vocal on that one, and that put a stop to that one during the comment period.
Right.
And then more recently, I heard something about the administration wanting to stop the Lake City ammunition plant or something from supplying ammunition to the commercial market or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So there was just so much stuff. It seems like every week there's some new attack going on the Second Amendment.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. And what's weird about when you take a look at the M855 and the 7 and 6, and even the 7.62x39, the steel core that originally, Olympic Arms caused that problem way back in the day, 93 or whatever. The congressman that wrote the law saying that armor-piercing handgun ammunition is illegal, when the ATF was looking at banning 7 and 6 from import, the congressman that actually wrote the law wrote the ATF and said, this is not what we intended. All rifle ammunition will defeat soft armor. That was not our intent in the law. You're violating the spirit of the law. And ATF went like,
yeah, we'll interpret it the way we want.
Right. What are you going to do? Take us to court. They didn't care. And so hopefully this gives us another arrow in the quiver to fight them and have strong footing in court cases that before we didn't, because I never thought I'd live to see the day that the Supreme Court would actually, at some level, tackle Chevron. This isn't a clear decision one way or the other. They haven't, again, defined that black and white area when an agency has overstepped its bounds just yet. Perhaps it's somewhere in the ruling and it'll come out later in the news. But right now, it seems to be a step in the right direction. It's certainly the first time we've seen the court in some time even talk about Chevron, because, again, they're so afraid of unraveling the entire government and all the bureaucracy of the government simply by one Supreme Court decision. And basically all these agencies now have to go back through and try to get laws passed for all these rulings that were unjust. Mm-hmm. And so the government's kind of protecting itself. So when I read this news this morning, I was just jumping up and down. I'm like, good grief, they're actually going to start to talk about it. So because so rarely do they talk about it. And when they do, it's in very narrow, scope. Mm-hmm. So we'll bring more news to you guys as we get more news about this new Supreme Court decision, but it looks very promising. There will be more legal analysis done by legal minds, and we'll bring that information to you in a future video. I've already reached out to GOA and talking to our attorney there. He's going to take a look at the decision, and we'll have more information. I know Gun Owners of America will probably put out a video fairly quickly talking about their interpretation of this Supreme Court ruling. This is our non-legal interpretation of what it means and how exciting it could potentially be. Again, this is not a statement saying that everything the ATF has done so far is being undone. It's not gone that far, but we're just hoping that we're getting someplace again with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court really has been active the last few weeks.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, so active that now that the one side wants to go ahead and stack it in their favor to try to change it.
Yeah, well, there we go. I don't want to get into general politics, but yeah, when the other side loses, now you have packed courts and things are unbalanced. Why? Because, it doesn't lean to the left anymore, and like it has for the last 50 years. Now it leans to the right, and now it's unbalanced. But anyway,
beside the point.
That's beside the point. So guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel so we can continue to bring you information like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, got that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and support us here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 14 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Take care, guys.